Imagine being sick, and the doctor hands you a mixture of crocodile dung, honey, and moldy bread. Welcome to the world of the Ebers Papyrus, one of the most brutal and bizarre medical guides in ancient history. The Ebers Papyrus is an ancient Egyptian medical text dating back to around 1550 BC. It's a massive scroll, over 100 pages long, packed with hundreds of treatments for everything from toothaches to deadly plagues. But while some remedies were surprisingly effective, others were so shocking it almost felt like torture. This papyrus came from a time when Egypt was at the height of its power. Illness wasn't just seen as a physical problem. It was often thought to be the work of angry gods or evil spirits. So Egyptian medicine mixed practical treatments with spells, incantations, and ingredients that sound more like a witch's brew than a prescription. Doctors would roll open the Ebers Papyrus and find cures for just about everything. Got asthma? You'd inhale smoke from burning herbs. Got stomach pain? They'd feed you mixtures of beer and crushed dates. Got an infection? Moldy bread was pressed onto the wound, but the text didn't stop there. It suggested remedies involving donkey hooves, lizard blood, and even excrement. Imagine lying on a mat in the sweltering desert heat while a priest-physician smears dung paste across your wound. And here's where it gets brutal. Most treatments made things worse. Crocodile dung wasn't just disgusting. It could spread parasites and cause deadly infections. Even the surgical practices were terrifying. The papyrus describes lancing boils, cutting open abscesses, and inserting strange substances into wounds with little understanding of sterilization. In short, if the disease didn't kill you, the cure just might. While Egyptians wrote their cures down, other civilizations took a far more drastic approach, cutting directly into the human skull. Trepanning, or trepanation, is the practice of cutting or drilling a hole into the skull. Sounds barbaric, right? That's because it was. Yet, from prehistoric times through the Middle Ages, people believed this gruesome procedure could save lives. The practice goes back over 7,000 years. Archaeologists have uncovered skulls from Europe, Africa, and South America, all with neat circular holes and, astonishingly, signs of healing. That means the patients survived. Back then, illness and madness were often blamed on evil spirits trapped inside the body. So the logic was simple. Cut open the skull and let the demons escape. The process was nightmarish. First, the patient was restrained, sometimes awake, sometimes given herbs to dull the pain. The healer then took a sharp stone, bone tool, or early metal blade and began scraping or drilling into the skull. Slowly, painfully, a circular section of bone was removed. The brain wasn't touched, but the skull was left open, raw, and exposed. No anesthesia, no antiseptic, just cold, relentless cutting. One slip could pierce the brain and kill instantly. Infection was almost guaranteed. Remember, this was centuries before germ theory. Patients could suffer seizures, paralysis, or death from blood loss. And yet, some skulls show repeated surgeries, meaning people went through this more than once. Imagine surviving the first drilling, only to be dragged back for another. And the most shocking part is that it actually worked, sometimes. If you think modern medicine is unreliable, wait till you hear about Mercury Cures. About 500 years ago, mercury wasn't feared. It was trusted. For centuries, this shimmering liquid metal was prescribed as a cure for countless diseases, from constipation to syphilis. Doctors believed mercury could purge the body, balance the humors, and wash away sickness. But in reality, it often destroyed patients faster than the disease itself. The use of mercury dates back to ancient China, India, and Greece. By the Middle Ages, it became the go-to cure in Europe. Syphilis, a devastating disease with no known remedy, made mercury treatments especially popular. The saying went, "A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury." In other words, one romantic mistake meant years of toxic treatments. So what did these cures look like? Patients might drink mercury mixed with herbs, swallow pills laced with it, or have it rubbed onto their skin as an ointment. In more extreme cases, they were placed in sweat chambers, while mercury vapors filled the air. The idea was to sweat out the disease. Instead, patients inhaled deadly fumes while their skin blistered and peeled. The side effects were horrifying. Mercury attacks the nervous system, leading to tremors, tooth loss, and insanity. Long-term exposure destroyed the kidneys, wrecked the brain, and ended in a slow, miserable death. But here's the cruel twist. Patients thought the suffering was proof the treatment was working. The worse they felt, the more convinced they were that mercury was fighting the illness. And yet, despite the misery, mercury remained as a medicine for hundreds of years. But over time, this toxic metal outlived its reputation as a cure and became one of the most notorious poisons in history. I'm pretty sure you've heard about cupping therapy before, especially if you're into sports. But in the past, it was completely different from what it is today. So let's talk about it. Cupping therapy is the ancient practice of placing heated cups on the skin to create suction. For thousands of years, it's been believed to cure pain, fever, and even internal diseases. To its followers, those dark, round marks weren't bruises. They were proof the sickness was leaving the body. It was practiced in ancient Egypt, written about in Chinese medical texts, and even used in the Islamic Golden Age. Healers claimed the technique could balance energy, improve blood flow, and expel toxins. From pharaohs to emperors, patients across civilizations submitted themselves to the burning sting of the cups. The procedure was simple. The healer lit a flame inside a cup, then quickly pressed it against the patient's skin. As the flame died, a vacuum formed, pulling the flesh upward. Sometimes the cups were left in place. Other times, they were dragged across the skin, ripping and blistering the surface. A variation called wet cupping went further. Tiny cuts were made first, so blood would be drawn into the cup. To the patient, every bruise and every drop of blood was a sign of healing. Wet cupping, with its open wounds, exposed patients to deadly diseases in an era before sterilization. And yet, people endured the pain willingly, convinced that the darker and uglier the bruises, the more sickness had been purged. Despite the brutality, cupping never truly disappeared. It spread across cultures and religions, even surviving into the modern era. Today, it's been rebranded as alternative therapy. Athletes and celebrities proudly show off their circular marks like badges of honor. Some ancient treatments weren't just painful, they were also surgical nightmares. Welcome to the excruciating operation known as lithotomy. This is the ancient surgical removal of bladder stones. These hardened mineral deposits caused unbearable pain, blood in the urine, and sometimes death. The only solution: cut the body open and take them out. Simple in theory, horrifying in practice. The patient was strapped to a table, legs tied apart. The surgeon inserted fingers or shoved instruments into the body to locate the stone. Then a cut was made deep into the perineum. Once the opening was made, the surgeon would dig with hooks or forceps, clawing for the stone. Hippocrates himself, the father of medicine, refused to do it, calling the operation too dangerous. Yet desperate patients lined up anyway, choosing the surgeon's knife over certain death. The dangers were overwhelming: uncontrolled bleeding, torn organs, an infection from unclean instruments. Many patients died on the table, or days later from sepsis. Even survivors were often left incontinent, crippled, or traumatized for life. But those who lived actually praised the operation afterward. Anyways, thanks for watching.